fixing my broken business model once and for all. It's been a while since I did a video on repair shop ethics. And sometimes I have to remind myself we're not in 2010 or 2015 anymore. We're not even in 2025 anymore. And so I've decided that there have to be some changes in the way that I bill my customers. And a lot of these changes took place because of a really profound realization that Kurt, who's my administrative assistant that I hired in July, figured out. Now, Kurt's probably got a better background than I do with this stuff, which is why I hired him. But he stumbled on this idea that we're using profits from our shop to fund major projects that go through our shop. That doesn't sound right. It would sort of be like saying, if I run a mobile home park, I'm using rent revenue that I collect from renting out trailers to pay other people's rent on their trailers until those people who are renting trailers from me can pay me back with a little bit of interest. Now, to translate this into the repair shop model, I am using money that I've earned fixing people's cars to fix other people's cars, waiting until those other people pay their bill because I've reached some sort of end to the project where I feel that the desired result has been achieved. That's not a great way to run a shop, because what you end up doing is spending all the money you earn on labor capital. So I'm using, where is that money going? If I earn $10,000 fixing a car and I have another car that needs 40 to 50 hours worth of work and $5,000 worth of parts, I'm taking that $10,000 and using it to pay my employees for their labor and paying Mercedes for the $5,000 worth of parts. There's one problem though, the $10,000 from that other car doesn't actually end up in my pocket where I need it so that I can put a roof over my head, take care of my family, pay my bills, etc. That's not good. That's very bad, actually. That's extremely bad. It's disturbing in a way. Bothers me. It gets on my nerves a little, to think about that. So what's the solution? Well, now the solution is those estimates that I spend hours and hours and hours writing are now going to become an indication to the customer of what they need to pay up front. So in every estimate, you have parts, labor, and sublets, which are jobs that you send to other people to do, like a seat repair or a fuel injection pump rebuild or an air suspension valve rebuild. Those sublets are going to be used to, those invoices are going to be used to ask a customer for a certain amount of money to cover roughly 25% of the labor and then all of the parts up front, so that I don't have to use my own money to buy parts. And one of the reasons that I haven't done this for the last, I don't know, how long have I been? I've been in business. In mail, I've been in business for 20 years. One of the reasons that I did not do this from 2006 to 2026 is because I have been very afraid of people considering me to be a dishonest person because I've had to ask them for money to fix their car. But, over New Year's, I came to four key realizations. One, when a car shows up here with a bunch of problems, those problems are not my fault. I didn't damage the car, break the car, fail to maintain the car, leave the car parked for 25 years. They're not my fault. So if you send me your car and it needs a bunch of repairs and they're expensive, it's not my fault that it needs the repairs. It's also not my fault that they're expensive. We just have to charge what we have to charge to survive. Second of all, when people say this shop or that shop doesn't want to work on my car and you're really my only option, what they mean is really that. Nobody, I repeat, nobody wants to solve the hard to solve problems on a 40 or 50-year-old Mercedes. Nobody does, except for maybe Cody or Jamie or, you know, Jonathan Waters or surprisingly the Mercedes dealership in Jacksonville. I mean, there just aren't a lot of people who do this stuff. And there has to be some kind of financial reward for me saying, I'm willing to solve the problems in your car that nobody else is willing to solve. There has to be. The financial reward needs to be this, that I charge for every hour we work on the car, even if I didn't estimate for them, and that I make, you know, the same hourly rate as any other shop. Some shops, whether they're car dealerships, which have amazing facilities, or they're smaller repair shops like mine, charge different rates because of the condition of their facility. And the third realization I came to was that I have to divorce myself from that feeling that just because my facility is not dealership perfect, or because my workforce doesn't wear a bunch of nice uniforms that say Lexus on them or something, we can't just look at the normal hourly rate and say, forget about it. We have to increase our hourly rate with the cost of living, with the cost of doing business. And I'm not doing it because I want to get wealthy. I'm doing it for another reason. It's because for the last year, I haven't really made any money. And I'm not saying I'm in business to make tons of money, but I am in business to make some money. I need to make money. Otherwise, why would I want to show up to work? You know, a lot of people ask me, they're like, well, why are you taking so much time off to spend with your son? And it's because it doesn't matter how much time I'm here or not here, the business just wasn't making any money. We were producing work and doing good work, but we weren't making any money. And I'm convinced that because we're using the revenues from old projects to cover the costs of new projects, we can't make any money. Not making money for me has always been a way of life. So having like a good income, a strong income, a consistent income has never been normalized for me. I can't even wrap my head around it. All of my customers that come in here, for the most part, they've had the comfort of having, most of them have had the comfort of having a consistent and high income. Does that mean that I think that their income is too high and I wish that they could experience having an inconsistent low income like me? No, I don't think that at all. I think that I need to figure out what's fair for me and think about what the fair way for me to handle my own business's finances are. And some of that means that if customers are going to pay for a portion of labor up front and all their parts up front so that I can keep my doors open, my staff paid, my family fed and housed, and you know, my parts inventory well stocked, which is a big one, then that's how things need to be. You know, they need to be run in a way that benefits our business, not necessarily in a way that proves to the customer that we're honest. Why am I so scared of people thinking that I'm dishonest? Because I'm not a dishonest person. You know, the whole problem is, I think this is where it comes from. I'm willing to have a discussion about this, but this is just my one-sided take on where this comes from. When people come to a garage, they expect the mechanic to be a fraud and a liar. You heard me. Many people perceive mechanics to be frauds and liars, especially when they're expensive. Well, I'm expensive, but I'm not a fraud and a liar. What makes me not a fraud and a liar? Now, this is the fourth realization I had. The fourth realization I had is that I strive to do everything I tell the customer that I say I'm going to do. I don't say to them, I'm going to replace your brake pads and make sure your braking system, this is the important part, is working like it's supposed to. Nope. If I tell the customer that I'm going to make sure their braking system is working the way it's supposed to, that's exactly what I mean. I'm going to change whatever parts I need to change and provide documentation about not only what brand of part I used, but what labor procedures I undertook and how long those labor procedures required. And then we're going to end up with a car that brakes like it's supposed to. B-R-A-K-E-S, not B-R-E-A-K-S. You know, that was the whole build-up, the pun, right? The idea, though, is that a lot of shops quote people an exorbitantly high parts and labor charge, and then they don't do the work and hit the end goal. They don't do the work they say they're going to do. This was a massive ethical, what do they call them again? A massive ethical, man, there's a word for this too, a very difficult problem to solve. Now it's like on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember, but this is a massive ethical challenge for me. What makes a shop ethical versus making a shop not ethical? Does a shop become unethical when they have a really high hourly rate? Does a shop become unethical when they tell their customers that they're going to do something and then they can't do it, and they tell the customer, we're going to fix your car, we're going to take it in, we're going to repair it, we're going to charge you some money for looking at it, but then after they've charged the customer money, they're like, well, we looked at it, we can't fix it. That's unethical because you're presenting yourself as capable when you're not. So I determined, finally, after weeks of thinking about this, what makes a shop unethical is when you do something that is different from what you told the customer that you're going to do. In other words, if you tell the customer what you're going to do, how much it's going to cost, what kind of time frame you need, and you update them when you come across new information or new problems, that's all you need. That's ethical. Ethical is when you tell the customer exactly what you're going to do and you know what you're doing and you get in there and you put your 100% into solving the problem. That's ethical. I can tell my customers now, I'm an ethical guy. I wake up every day. I look for the best, most effective way to fix your car and make sure it stays fixed. And if there's a problem, I go back and I deal with it without asking you a bunch of questions or pretending it's your fault or you did something wrong to the car. I say, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to resolve the problem. That's being ethical. Standing behind your work is being ethical. Giving the customer a clear idea of the costs and labor charges and what you're going to accomplish on their car is ethical. What isn't ethical? Probably everything else. Telling somebody, oh, it's just going to be time and materials, no estimate. I would like to say that that's ethical, but it's not, because the customer really needs to know, because then you're going to give the customer an unpleasant surprise. But it also doesn't mean that those costs can't change. Sometimes we get in the car, the scope of work is much bigger than we expected. Then you have to communicate it to the customer instead of just saying, oh, I assumed you were going to be okay with this, sorry. So the fourth thing that I came to the conclusion to was that I have tested I mean, there are personal issues I've had to work through. I think my biggest personal issue is that sometimes I'm afraid to tell people the truth because they're not going to like it. That's hard for me. It's hard for anyone. But I realize that I don't care anymore, because if I tell somebody the truth, I fulfilled my obligation of telling them the truth. I work very hard sometimes to come to that truth. So the fourth thing is, yes, I've tested myself, and it turns out over the last 20 years, I've done my best to stand behind my work. There have been some times where I've failed, but for the most part, I've done some pretty crazy things that most shops would not do to try to stand behind their work, including shipping cars to my shop for a cost of thousands of dollars. Redoing a job 3 times until big jobs like pulling transmissions out until I get the desired result. I mean, sending people parts for free, flying out and doing repairs in their cars when I need to be at my shop working, spending hours on the road just to go to their house and do one little repair to make sure that their car is safe or reliable. So I've done it. I think I'm not a good person, but I'm a person that follows what I think is an ethical code of conduct as a mechanic. And that's why I think that I finally deserve to start billing ahead of time, because I don't need to prove anything to anybody. It's all out there on the internet. It's all out there. If somebody wants to talk to my customers, I'm here, All right, well, thank you if you watched this far. I appreciate it. And if you're not one of our subscribers yet, maybe one day you will be. I hope you enjoy learning more about old Mercedes on this channel, and we'll see you in the future. And thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We really appreciate you guys for helping us keep our cameras running and our lights on. See you in the future.